CRM has been proven to limit sales reps' responsiveness, persistency, and cadence. It's a design flaw, and it's losing you deals. That is why today's sales leaders use sales engagement platforms like VanillaSoft. Check it out. Go to vanillasoft.com and start your free trial.
August 23rd, 2019, San Francisco. The Sales Development Conference. The third annual conference focused and dedicated 100% to sales development. Join over 500 of the most influential sales development leaders in our industry for a full day of learning, networking, and growing your skills. This year, we're offering 3 learning tracks focused on sales development leadership, rep training, and our newest track dedicated to sales and marketing operations. Grab your tickets today before it sells out over at tenbound.com/conference. That's tenbound.com/conference. See you August 23rd.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sales Development Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. I am honored to bring on a friend of mine who is a rising star in the sales development community, Mr. Ron Nelson. How are you doing today, sir?
I am doing fantastic, David. Really honored to be on the podcast. What's the saying? Long-time listener, first-time caller. So that's kind of the situation.
Nice, dude.
Big fan of yours. So really honored to be on the podcast today.
Oh, man, I'm really excited to get you on because, I remember you the first time I met you. I think it was at the first sales development conference that we put on. And, it's months of work and preparation and making sure that everything's cool and everything went well. And it was at the end and I was just like completely burnt. And you came up to me and introduced yourself. You were really cool. And you just said, "Hey, that was a great conference." And I was like, you know what? I like this guy.
I appreciate that. I got so much out of that conference. Not only did I learn, but it was a great opportunity to network. And, I got a chance to meet you, John Barrows and so many other folks. I mean, it was fantastic. And I was just so pumped up. And I'm really glad that you're, doing the conference. There's a ton of value in it. And, everybody I talk to, I really encourage them to attend.
Oh, man, I love it. I hope to see you there again this year.
Oh, without a doubt. No question.
We're getting you in. So, dude, I wanted to bring you on the show. I mean, your story is so interesting in that, how you got into sales development and became a success in this industry. So if people aren't aware of your story and your background, can you bring us up to speed on how you got into sales development and what you've been working on?
Absolutely. It's kind of a crazy story, but, I had a sports background. And so after college, I didn't know if I wanted to go to law school, whatever. I ended up in, long story short, I ended up in retail auto sales and got, took to it like a fish to water. I love the concept of having, personal goals along with team goals, working together as a team, trying to accomplish things, loved it. Had a great career, worked my way up, ultimately becoming a general sales manager. So, now I'm running a sales department. Everything's going great. And then all of a sudden the recession comes and, literally was wiped out. It was crazy. And, a lot of the family owned dealerships, went away. And unfortunately, that impacted me. And so now for the first time in my life, I'm having to, I'm unemployed. I don't have a job and I'm having to try and figure out, do I want to stay in this business, which had been hit hard by the internet and all these kinds of changes, or do I want to make a career change? And as much as I loved the auto industry, the one drawback is you're working 6-7 days a week, the holidays, that's when you have your biggest sales, so you're away from family, you're working 10-12 hours a day. And I don't mind working hard, but having to be physically at the dealership, for that amount of time, so I decided that, I was going to transition into more of a B2B sales, have more of a structured, hours, although, obviously we work, on weekends and the evenings as well, but you're more in control of that. And you can, spend time with family and, I have a daughter and that's really important to me, so I thought, well, hey, I'm this, successful general sales manager. This is going to be an easy transition. And It was not.
Famous last words.
I learned, like the experience that I had with a B2C sale, it wasn't really valued in tech. And then, keep in mind, we're in a recession. So, I was determined to break into this business. Sales development was, that avenue for me to get into it. I started, at the bottom. I was making $13.50 an hour. It was a call center environment. It was an auto dialer, not like, sales law for outreach where you're clicking and you're dialing, but like they're pumping the calls in. So I'm receiving like 400 calls a day. I mean, I'm like chained to a desk. It was crazy. And I'm bartending at night. So like I was in the Bay Area. So I'm working in Oakland. I'd jump on a BART train. I'd go to San Francisco and I'd bartend at night and like repeat, rewind. But it was hell, at the time. But, when you talk about like phone stamina and, when I ask, teams that I'm running now, to make 40 or 50 dials, I'm like, trust me, you can do this. That's not a lot. And I kind of tell them my story, but I just kind of worked my way, from that job into, now I'm more in a tech oriented space. I was working at Good Technology. Then now I moved to a business development role in Los Angeles. And then from there, I moved on and became a sales development rep where I'm currently at Information Builders. And it turned out like, they talk about everything happens for a reason. And, I firmly believe that because, I landed at a great company with a really tremendous opportunity.
Yeah. Tell me about that. I mean, well, first of all, going through that experience, how do you feel about working in the tech industry now and the change from the automotive to grinding out in a call center to the tech industry? I mean, you must have observations about, how they're different.
Well, for me, I developed thick skin and there's a lot of good things that came out of it. I mean, you want to talk about competitive, it is cutthroat, and I'm in a competitive space now. I'm in, data management and analytics. There's a lot of big players in that space. It's competitive. And I saw how, the importance of being able to evolve because, we were at a time and, I'm probably around your age. So, some of the listeners on, to the podcast, there was a day when there was not an internet, right? So once the internet came, I mean, that just changed the way that people bought, cars. And, so that lesson for me, the importance of being able to evolve and change, that was really life changing. And, now in sales development, we're kind of in that same space, in that same type of situation. Things are moving, towards a more customer centric approach. The customer experience is important. And it really starts with sales development. So evolving my team to fit that model, value based, earning the right to be able to engage with them, being a trusted advisor, a consultative approach, that understanding the importance to adapt and make those changes, the situation that we're in now, I got that out of the auto industry.
Yes, and that experience. And so I think one thing that teams struggle with is because of that changing environment, right? And because of the changing buyer behavior, they're like, man, I've tried everything and I just can't seem to break through, and they probably bring that to you. And I mean, are you just like, dude, you don't even know, like, you don't even know what it's like. I mean, we didn't even have any of this stuff because you kind of got that vibe of like, like back in my day, like we had to make 300 phone calls, but I mean, that doesn't really help, to have that attitude. So it's like, how do you deal with people that are just like, hey man, I've tried everything in sales development. Nothing's working for me. What do I do?
So, I try and frame it in a context which is relatable, to the sales development rep. I work with, a mixed bag. So I have a lot of millennials, I also have some older folks, but, I frame it, actually back into the context of the auto industry. So like, I asked them, like, if you're going to make a purchase or if you're going to buy a car, what do you do? Well, I get online and I do a bunch of research, and I tell them, I'm actually in the market for a car right now. So I've put a lot of time into this. I haven't stepped foot onto a lot. I haven't engaged a salesperson. I'm in the research mode, and I frame that context for the sales development reps, like, the people that we are, selling to, it's the same thing for them. They do a lot of research up front. And the best way to connect is not a, what's in it for me approach. I want to get a meeting so I can get paid, hit my metrics type of thing. You have to change, it starts with really, changing your way of thinking and making sure that every touch point, and definitely, it has to be a multi-touch point, multi-channel. You never know, what the best way to engage a prospect is. Some folks like LinkedIn, they prefer that method to email. The importance of calls and voicemails. And yeah, you're probably not going to get a call back, but you're connecting the touch points and bringing value with every touch point so that you earn the right to become a part of their process. That's sort of how I frame it, and understanding to be patient as opposed to just pounding people with email. And I'm sure it's the same way with you, David. Everybody's trying to sell to you. And I can guarantee you probably 90% of the engagement is through email, and probably very few people pick up the phone and call you.
Now, this is so interesting. I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot because I love what you're saying about putting yourself into the shoes of the buyer. And that's I'm sure that you've got a thumbed copy, the Sales Development Playbook by Trish Bertuzzi.
Absolutely.
and the gang.
Absolutely.
This is where I always recommend that you start. Understand your buyer. What is their world? How do they go through it? I love your analogy of like shopping for a car. What was the process that you went through in doing that research, and then trying to put yourself into their shoes? Now, where it becomes tricky is at the same time, the sales development rep, they're learning, they're trying to get into the shoes of the buyer. They're learning their persona, their pain point, and, trying to fit into that buyer cycle with research touch points. But at the same time, they're under a lot of pressure to perform, and they have to set appointments and build pipeline in order to get paid. So you have like this tension that I think leads to a poor experience for the person out there doing the research.
It's a quandary, but as leaders, we have to understand that. And I need to build relationships, with my, executive leadership team. And if we believe that this is a long-term strategy that's going to lead towards long-term success, and I also do believe it, as we, evolve and ramp this up, we will see, we will have some wins in the short term as well. But, I've got a great relationship, with our senior vice president, Brian Doheny. He's very committed to sales development. So part of it is culture. So, leadership being on the same page, understanding that this is, the method of sale that we need to be in. And let's face it, we're spoiled now with the Amazon experience, the Spotify experience. Everything's very tailored, to your needs. And that's how people are now buying. Expectations are high. And it really starts with the initial point of engagement along through the sales cycle. And then, of course, you have to really manage and anchor that account. You want to build a long-term relationship. But it starts with sales development.
I love that. So what's a good way to approach the buyer? So say you've got, you're out there and there's like 5 major, personas that you call on, and you want to take this attitude of, hey, I'm not going to pester them. I'm going to help them along in their research and help them to, be better educated on this so that when the time comes, then they're a right fit. We bring them in, we have a meeting. So like, where do we start with that? What's an initial outreach to them, and like, what does that look like?
So, it starts with the research. So, I'm big on developing business acumen, and you touched on it. So, understanding the persona. So, how is the person, measured, performance, what's important to them? What kind of requests and demands, does the person hear most frequently? What gets in the way of the person's success, the department, the line of business, those types of things. What are some of the problems, the challenges? What are some of the threats? And basically tailoring the content to that. And so, kind of telling a story. So yes, it's email, it's very, people are busy. So we want to be respectful. We want to get right to the point, kind of that why you, why now, Jay Barrow's approach. But we also, I'm fortunate it's a larger company. So we have webcasts, we've got white papers. So things that are relevant, kind of sharing that information with the prospect. And what that does is it does a couple of things. First of all, you're providing value. Secondly, you're building credibility. So, hey, let's face it, there's a lot of bad, content going out there. There's a lot of people, as you said, they're pressured to get meetings. So it's like, hey, do you have 15 minutes? Do you have 15 minutes? People are peppered with that. So like, how do you stand out? You stand out by providing value. You make it about, their journey. You understand that just if they're not ready to engage, like continue to provide value, I call it professionally persistent. And if you provide value, if you build credibility, eventually people will engage if there is a pain, that aligns to your solution. And we're starting to see some success with that approach.
Nice.
Are you in sales, but you're not using a sales engagement tool? Then you're probably losing out on revenue because you are not engaging with prospects at the right time, with the right cadence, and with enough persistency. You need VanillaSoft. Start your free trial today. Go to vanillasoft.com.
Okay. And so you're almost building a relationship. And so your philosophy is when say you hire someone on your team to be a new rep, building that business acumen and teaching them about the market and the persona. That's one of the main things of your training program. Is that right?
Yeah. So, that's really what I'm doing now. So I've been in this role, roughly 6 months, and there was nothing built out. So I'm building all of that out. And, sales enablement is so important. So, you're hiring somebody, not a ton of experience coming out of college. Their success is going to be dependent upon the level of training and coaching and the resources that you have available, to the SDR. It's tremendously important. And a component of that is around understanding the persona, understanding, the vertical, et cetera. And I'm such a big proponent of coaching. And it's not like, hey, you get hired, you go through new hire training, here's your desk, good luck. Like we do this weekly. We're committed to it. And anybody who's going to be a sales leader under me, it has to be committed to that as well. And I take it very seriously because the type of people that I'm looking to hire, I want people who are driven, people who are motivated, people who want to, grow and expand their knowledge. And if you're going to bring somebody like that on board, and typically they're going to be a high performer, the promise that I make to them is that I'm invested in their personal growth, their career growth. So I make that a pillar to my sales development organization.
Oh, man, I love this. I think you're going to get a lot of inbound applications for the job. It's like, I could go to business school with Ron and get paid at the same time. That's awesome, dude.
On LinkedIn, we are hiring.
Nice. There you go, folks. You just got your next lead. Hey, and let me ask you this. So for all the people that are out there who's, VP or CEO, they don't really understand sales development and they just want results, instantly, like a Pop-Tart, microwave thing. And I think both of you and I know that it takes time to develop these things. It takes time and resources to set up a system that's repeatable. How do you advise talking to somebody who really they're not in our world and they don't really get this. And, you're trying to put a real solid program in place.
David, we can do an entire show on this topic.
Okay, there we go.
Because you know how it is. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. And anybody who is a sales manager or a sales director automatically assumes that they are a sales development expert. And it's,
so true.
You are so, right. And especially the journey that we're on right now, where we're building out a program, it does take time. It's not automatic. It is an investment. And, a lot of that, it comes to, trying to change the culture of an organization. If it doesn't already exist, it's all about relationships. And again, I really have to credit, my leader, Brian Doheny. And the reason why is he gives us a platform. We have a voice. And unfortunately, in some organizations, sales development doesn't have a voice. So to talk about your specific question, I'll give you an example. So, we're going to have a executive sales leadership meeting, coming up in April. I'm a part of that agenda. I'll be presenting to the team. I'm going to break down, and it's up to me to effectively communicate, this journey, where we're at, where we're going to go, and have those types of touch points. It's really important to have buy-in and good communication with, other, key stakeholders within the organization. And I think that, they're starting to get it. And some already did, to their credit.
Nice. Okay. So you've got to, having a supporter within your company that's like a mentor. Oh my God, it makes such a huge difference.
It makes a ton of difference. And, and I got to give you credit. The last time we talked, you put me on to, the Chris Van book. And, so many, SaaS companies have leveraged sales development. And when they've made that investment, it's really driven growth. I mean, MuleSoft, Cloudera. I mean, we could go on and on and on. And I believe that we can do the same thing here. And luckily, I'm very fortunate that I do have some support at a very high level. And I'm excited to see where we take this thing.
Me too. And I got one more in that vein. I've got one more question for you in that you mentioned, everybody becomes an expert in sales development, even if they haven't run a sales development team or it's been 15 years. So what do you do with the sales reps? Because a lot of them used to be SDRs and, now they're on the receiving end. They're not getting enough meetings. They're not building enough pipeline. And all of a sudden you've got, 20 sales reps and each one is an expert in sales development and they're working on you to make changes and to do things differently. And, you're going, dude, back off. But anyways, how do you deal with that if you've ever had to?
Oh, have I? This is a pretty good size
I can't
company,
stump you, man.
We're talking like 50 reps.
Yeah. Exactly.
And everybody's an expert, So, I mean, first and foremost, and Richard Harris talks about this, right? So being vulnerable. And understanding that, you're fallible, you're not going to be perfect and, accepting that, but being able to learn from those mistakes along the way. I'm also really big on feedback on all levels. Matter of fact, I just had a conversation with one of our reps, John Sovic, and I want to get, an understanding, where they're at, from their line of sight, challenges that they're having, what's working, what's not working. At the end of the day, you're not going to please everybody. I mean, let's face it. But I think the most important thing, again, kind of comes back to communication, getting input from others. And then, with me, I really preach the importance of having that AE-SDR relationship. And so defining expectations. And, when you have defined expectations and it's not gray, then everybody can kind of be a little bit more on the same page. So if it's, hey, this was a horrible meeting, why was it a bad meeting? Well, it wasn't the right, title. Well, have you really, defined with your SDR, where you want to focus? Because even though we as an organization may have titles that we want to focus on, particular AEs may have a sweet spot. Maybe they want to focus on certain, things. Everybody kind of has a way of running their business. So having that communication, like if you haven't had that communication with your SDR, if you're not invested in the relationship, it's going to impact the relationship. So that right there is like, you may have to call out a little bit, but, again, it's just, it starts with the AE SDR relationship. The sales development managers, need to be in good communication with the AEs, and I do as well. And we all have to, level set on expectations. And we have to understand that, it's a team sport. So if it's not working, it's got to be how can we fix it as opposed to how can you fix it? Yes. No finger pointing.
No finger pointing, no blame game. We're on the same team. Let's
Absolutely.
Communicate. Let's get this done. Let's row in the same direction. I mean, easier said than done. But easier said than done, especially at some companies. But so question for you. So this is a very established company where you're at right now, and you are bringing in these very modern, cutting edge sales development, philosophies. A lot of people, it's the opposite. It's like a new company. Hey, we need some appointments. Let's start a sales development program. But you're almost doing it the opposite. So what has that experience been like?
It's been a ton of change. For me personally, it's like a dream opportunity. to have an opportunity to build a sales development program from the ground up. I mean, typically you're at a startup, so you're working with a really small team. I have a team of 25 SDRs, across North America. We also have an international, SDR team. I'm not involved with that, but have a pretty, 25 is a pretty large SDR team. I've got inbound, I've got outbound, but it's a 43-year-old company. The founder, who's a brilliant man. I mean, our software is spectacular, but we did not have modern business practices. We recently got an investment from Goldman Sachs, so now we're partnered up with them. We got a brand new CEO, Frank Vella, and Frank brought on, Brian. And, Brian, right away, identified like, hey, if we're going to win, we've got to have a successful, sales development program. I mean, we're in the SaaS space. I kind of mentioned, MuleSoft and Cloudera and, all these companies have really leveraged it. So, that's a pillar, for our success and for our growth. And, it's been a ton of change. So the challenge for me as we, retool and, we've sort of right-sized the business from a personnel perspective. We've done some territory, adjustments and whatnot. So the challenge for me has been keeping, folks focused, as we go through these types of change. Some people are adverse to it, and just kind of keeping people, believing in the mission and understanding that these changes are for the better. And it's going to lead to, growth in the company. It's going to help them to be successful. The SDRs, I mean, they love the change. They love the structure, and they understand, how it benefits them. So it's honestly, I mean, it's just, I'm having the time of my life right now.
I love it. And, you mentioned a key word that comes up a lot in this very distracted, environment that we have. And especially as you're implementing all these changes, you've got new leadership, you got new investment, focus. How do you keep your team on point and keep yourself on point with all these different changes that are happening?
Well, I'll kind of start with what I do with the team. And, the way that I'm building this program up is a lot of it is like I make it about them. So, that's sort of like helps to maintain focus every day. And it's, I know it sounds kind of cliche, but, getting 1% better every day. And like the work that you do and developing these skills and being successful, like this is your launching pad. And, I'm living proof. I was an SDR, now I'm running a North American, sales development team. That's where the focus comes in. I make it about them. I help them to understand and put it in a context where, there's going to be benefit to the company, to the team, et cetera. But really the investment of your energy, your time, your buy-in, the commitment to learning, that is all you. And this is going to help you to move, you in the direction of your dreams, your goals. And so as a component of the training, there is a motivational component. So I try and take things, that I've learned from folks like yourself, Kevin Dorsey, Barrows, et cetera, and, provide that to them. And that really gets them charged up. And, likewise for me. So, going to conferences like the Sales Development Conference, or Rainmaker, or, having mentors and people that I can lean on, that helps me to maintain focus. I'm competitive, I'm driven. But there are some tough days. I don't wake up out of bed every day. It's not all rainbows and unicorns. But, having a network of folks, and having conversations with folks like yourself, I mean, that like supercharges me up. At the end of the day, I'm pretty much a sales development geek. I love the stuff.
Oh, man, I love it. I mean, we've covered so many useful topics. I mean, if anybody is a leader or they want to become a leader, go back, rewind, listen to what Ron is saying. Man, we are in wild agreement on all this stuff, and I've loved picking your brain about it. It's funny, a lot of people skip over the whole mindset issue with sales development reps. They just think it's fluffy, motivational, like hippy dippy stuff. But I think we are in total agreement that, hey, motivation, yes, it wears off, but so does brushing your teeth. Right? You still do it every day, because
Absolutely.
If you don't, you're going to be in bad shape. And I think that people skip over that. They're just like, hey, I'll buy the latest tool. I just need to like redo my script. I just need to make more phone calls. And then it's like, hey, why am I so depressed? And it's like, hey, you haven't been thinking about your positive mindset and how to like structure your day around that. So that's really interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to tell you, you can get burnt out pretty easy in this business. And,
Yes.
sales development in particular. I mean, it's such a unique role because every day you go to work, you're going to be rejected every day, and that can wear on you. And you can have, days where you make 40, 50 dials, you don't even get a single person, to pick up. So, how do you, continue to, stay motivated so that when you make that 55th dial and someone does pick up, you have energy, you have enthusiasm. If you're not excited about evangelizing the message, then the other person on the other line is not going to be excited about it either. So it's really, I talk about the values that I want to have on this team, and I talk about, the emotional characteristics, that are important, and, self-awareness and understanding, hey, I'm in a funky mood right now. What am I going to do about it? And, creating a sense of a team environment where, the SDRs, even if they're halfway across, the country, they have those relationships and, they can Slack each other or email each other. Everybody on this team has my cell phone number. They're welcome to text me, call me. We can talk about anything, whatever. Just shoot the shit, whatever. You have to kind of create that environment.
It's a supportive environment and it's encouraging and, it's reflective of the fact that, hey, we're all human beings here. We're not like ones and zeros, computers here. I mean,
right.
We're gushy, emotional people and it goes up and down. But yeah, I mean, what's exciting about sales development is that it is like almost like a self-development course. I mean, you got to face your fear every day. You got to learn new challenges. You got to learn your industry. You have the potential to become a sales rep and make a lot of money or move up like Ron has done and become a leader in the industry. So it's a really exciting field. But on the flip side, I mean, it is a huge challenge. So you got to have that support system.
No question.
Yeah.
No question.
Man, this has been amazing. Ron, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge and your story. I can't wait to have more conversations with you. I feel like we're just scratching the surface on a lot of this stuff. But hey, like you said, you've got job openings. You're on LinkedIn. How do people connect with you?
They can either email me directly, ron_Nelson@ibi.com, or they can, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to talk about, best practices. If there's an SDR, looking for a new opportunity, this is an exciting space, data management, analytics, ping me, and we'll go from there.
Oh, man, I think that is a golden opportunity. It sounds like great product, great investments, great leadership. And obviously, Ron is there and you'd be crazy not to look into that. So, Ron, thanks again. We'll see you in a few months here at the conference. And in the meantime, let's get you back on the show real soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Development Podcast, the only audio forum 100% focused and dedicated to sales development, with your host, David Delaney. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on YouTube and take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes. Your support makes our show possible. If you are struggling with your sales development program, contact us at tenbound.com for a no-obligation exploratory call. Again, that's tenbound.com.